somebody ought to be willing to do that if necessary, but if he were in jail, he could provide nothing for either family. So this looks like lose-lose. So what looked like heroics, see, now looks like lose-lose. Actually lose-lose-lose, because wife number one loses, he loses, and wife number two loses. So everybody's a loser, see, instead of a winner. Okay, now that's impressive heroics, see, but is that the solution? See, no, probably not. Okay, so we suggested he write his first wife. Notice they don't say, go see her. They don't say, call her on the phone. Why? She is furious. And it might bring about more harm, see, if he shows up, or if he calls her on the phone. Does that make sense? Anybody ever been in a situation like that? That's the way it was with me and my ex-wife. Furious. In many cases. Have you ever had a situation like that? You could literally be. So they suggest he write. See, his first wife. See, we talk about direct men. See, but see, we're not making hard and fast rules. We're trying to get the amends made. See, not skirt an issue. See, or see, we want to. You know the difference between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, kind of thing. If we're being honest and sincere. We're taking into account everybody here, including the first wife. Now, you know, a letter of the law kind of, well, it says direct men, so he needs to hop on a plane and go see her. But that might not work. Okay, so see, I can assume that the people making the suggestions are probably praying and relying on God when they made it.
So it just doesn't say something somewhere about when you manufacture.
Sure does.
You need to make the event, but you don't need to indulge yourself in the gluttony, self-punishment at the expense of someone else, yourself. And
Did everybody hear what Dave said? We want to keep it simple. Simple is we're trying to get our amends made. We're not whipping boys, whipping girls. We're not here to throw gas on fires, to be guilty, to beat ourselves up, to crawl around and let everybody know what a jerk we were. It's not our purpose. Our purpose is to get the amends made, get everything cleaned up. And we want to do that in the best way, do our utmost to do it. And we want to be practical. The impressive heroics are not practical. Okay, so, yeah, just a second one. Okay, so we suggested he write his first wife, admitting what? Number one, his faults. So I'm going to start with that. Admit his faults. Number two, what's he going to do? He's going to ask her to give him. Okay, see, so what's he seeking here? See, a little humility. Okay, admitting his wrongs. Okay, you know, this is my problem. I didn't pay the money, whatever. Please forgive me. Okay, see, but this doesn't go far enough. So, it says he did, and also sent a small amount of money. Remember over on page 77, we talked about how people are going to be more interested in a demonstration, if we can make it, than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. Okay, see, so what's he doing with the money? He's making a demonstration. He probably doesn't have the dough to write her a check for all the back child support or alimony or whatever it was. But he does send her some dough, included in the admitting his faults and asking forgiveness. Okay, see, but that still doesn't go far enough. Okay, he told her what he would try to do in the future. That's called stating an intention. States his intention. See, to do what? To live up to his obligations, his responsibilities to her and their kids or whatever it is. See, that is probably court order. Okay, now, see, whatever it is that he's telling her he would try to do in the future may not even match up with, see, what he owes on a monthly basis. See, he may be, you know, tapped into $350 a month at this point and only be able to afford $212. Okay, so what's he got to do here is be honest. See, this is the condition I'm in, and this is what I can send you right now. You know, right, and this is what here's this in this letter. Here's what you're going to get every month from now on. I know I owe you $350. I can't pay you $300. administration makes his amends, states his intentions, and he says he's perfectly willing to go to jail if he cheats us. It's up to who now? Wrong. Right. Isn't that sneaky? There.
Well, it's up to God. It's also up to her too.
Sure.
To make the decision.
Yeah, well, see, yeah, who is he relying on?
God.
Is he relying on her judgment, or is he relying on God
God.
to do this? Okay, now, see, here she is. See, what's she interested in?
Money.
She's interested in the money. All right, so see, she can sick the DA on him, or she can accept the money. See, she's probably a practical woman. Kids to be, whatever. So, of course, she did not, in the whole situation, has long since been adjusted. Okay, see, so at this point, does the guy still owe the money? Yeah, see, he still owes the money. Is the amend made? Yeah. Okay, see, so the fear of the DA and the ex-wife, the guilt, and all that stuff that goes on with these things, see, at that point, he'll be gone. See, but he still owes the money. And has to pay it. Okay, yeah, Bob, you have something to say? Question?
I was just experience that we had. I worked for a company and I stole some product and sold some pot. And when I went to make my amends, my sponsor told me I couldn't make the amends to the customers because they'd taken out the company I worked for. So therefore, I could not make amends because it would hurt somebody else. The company that I worked for. It was $10,000. Now, that won't get rid of it. But rather, I was willing to make amends to those customers. But if I had let them know that I stole them, it would have affected people working behind me and the company that I worked for was around. That's what happened. There wasn't a lot to make. I think that comes into the environment.
Well, it fits there because any amend where other people are involved, we need to be hard on ourselves, considerate of them. They told us that we got no right to save our own skin at somebody else's expense. So we want to follow that as a guideline. We also don't want to use it as an excuse to do a cha-cha around something we are afraid of. So take this, see, amends is really a great test of our own honesty. See, at this point, it's one of the best tests of how much honesty has been developed in all of us. And so, if you're into, testing yourself for evidence and growth and all that, this is a great place to be doing that. Okay, let's go over to page 80, and we'll finish up this page until we get to the domestic amends. We'll pick that up next week. Okay, now before taking drastic action, as you're doing your amends, see, you may have some amends that require something that looks to you like drastic action. So before taking drastic action, which might other people, and implicate means involve, touch other people, what do? Yeah, secure their consent, see, if they're going to be involved. See, for example, if that thing that Bob was talking about, the only way he could make an amend of that kind would be to get, like, written permission from the well, I'd like to have done things like this. Does this make sense to? Yeah, right. Okay. Now he felt he had done a right. A wrong. He could not possibly make right. See, on his own power, he can't see any way to clean this thing up. See, and in a sense, that's the truth. See, relying on himself, there probably is no way to clean it up. Okay. So if he opened that old affair, he was afraid. So what's stopping him? Fear. It would destroy the reputation of his partner, disgrace his family, and take away his means of livelihood. What right, notice how self-righteous we get here. What right had he to involve those dependent upon him? How could he possibly make a public statement exonerating his rival? See, so what has entered the picture as soon as we see the word afraid? The God of reason. It sounds a lot like Dr. Bob back there on page 155, doesn't it? And I'll do anything but that. See, but these are legitimate kinds of fears and concerns that come up for all of us, and they need to be looked at. Okay, so after consulting with his wife and his partner, he came to the conclusion that it was better to take those risks. Better to take those risks than to stand before his Creator guilty of such ruinous slander. That's a pretty changed point of view for a human being, isn't it? See, the guy who's definitely put spiritual values ahead of everything. Okay, now you'll see that this is not entirely altruistic in the next sentence. He saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands or he would soon start drinking again. And so here's the old sledgehammer hanging over his head that he couldn't avoid. See, he's trying to figure out some way to do a cha-cha out of making the cement. Right? And he saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands. Right? See, so there will be, I'm sure, at least one case in the amends of everybody in this room, see, where you're going to see that you have to place the outcome in God's hands. There'll be at least one. I have a few of those. See, everybody seems to have at least one. And it's a real test of faith and willingness and all that kind of stuff. See, so when you get there, pray your butt off. See, rely on God and do whatever you're going to do. Okay, so he attended church for the first time in many years. After the sermon, he quietly got up and made an explanation. His action met widespread approval. So you remember the promise over on page 77, 78? That in 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. So you'll hear the unexpected happens. It's this guy. His action met widespread approval, and today he's one of the most trusted citizens of his town. This all happened years ago. Now, what I want you to notice is that this guy did not go make a direct amend to the ruined rival. Who got ruined here? The last line of paragraph 2 says, in fact, his rival was ruined. This guy owed an amend. See, we don't know what happened to the rival. We don't know whether the rival blew his brains out 3 days after the ruination. We don't know if he's still in town. We don't know. It doesn't tell us chances are... Still 1-0? Okay, now we've talked about the business and friend kind of amends. We've talked about the creditor amends. We've talked about the criminal and legal stuff. Now we're going to talk about domestic and family stuff, beginning with problems of a sexual nature. The chances are we have, everybody with us? Page 80? Okay, chances are that we have domestic troubles. Okay. What are the chances when you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous?
Very good.
Really want to know.
Is there anybody in here who didn't have domestic troubles? Okay. So the chances are quite high, in other words. See, the solution, to domestic troubles begins, with these things that we're talking about. And the discussion of this continues on through Chapter 7, Chapter 8, Chapter 9, and Chapter 11. And it's very important. We listen in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, everybody is talking about their domestic troubles in one form or another. 80 or 90% of the time, relationships that don't work, their family, their kids, their husbands and their wives and their marriages and all that. What the book says to do about these things is what works. But it requires that we practice spiritual principles, in our homes and in our families. And so you might just start looking at it that way. We're not talking about being good or holy. We're looking for a solution. And we need to be able to put the solution into effect where we live. So the chances are that we have domestic troubles. Perhaps we're mixed up with women. For those of you who are women, you could write men there in a fashion we wouldn't care to have advertised. We doubt if, in this respect, alcoholics are fundamentally much worse than other people. Alcoholics aren't the only folks who have these kind of troubles, except in our lives, since we are examples of, extreme examples of self-will run riot. The riot seems to cause a little more trouble. So whether other people do it or don't do it, get away with it or don't get away with it, what we need to do is to look and to see where we are. And what kind of harm we've done. Hopefully everybody's got a pretty good idea of that, having done your 4th and 5th step. The harm that's been done in families. It says drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. Anybody found that to be the truth? After a few years with an alcoholic, a wife, or a husband, gets worn out, resentful, and uncommunicative. Now, if you had looked up worn out, resentful, and uncommunicative in an encyclopedia, you would have found my wife's picture there. She was not a happy camper. I can't blame her. Okay, so how could she be anything else? Now, someone who is worn out, resentful, and uncommunicative has been engulfed, by the disease. Remember the word engulf from page 18? Now we are really beginning to see the start of another thread that goes through the book, which is really the basis of all the treatment center ideas and the counseling ideas that alcoholism is a family disease. The first place I have ever seen it written about is right here in the book. And it's very clearly stated in a number of places. It pretty much begins on page 18 and pick up here. Wait till we get over to the family afterward and see what they have to say about that. And so how could she be anything for else? The husband begins to feel lonely and sorry for himself. Anybody here felt lonely and sorry for yourself? Nah. He commences to look around in the nightclubs or their equivalent for something besides liquor. Perhaps he's having a secret and exciting affair with the girl who understands. In fairness, we must say that she may understand, but what are we going to do about a thing like that? A lot of people don't understand that sentence, but the alcoholic they're talking about here might be married to what we call a black belt Al-Anon. Okay? So he's off, he or she, and you may have this experience yourself, so you're off having this affair see, with someone, see, and they understand me. See? Does that make sense to everybody? See? So they're saying, yeah, see, you may very well have gotten into a relationship with someone who does understand you a lot better than your spouse. See, no kidding. See, so in fairness, see, we must say that she may understand. See, it may also be he. See, but what are we going to do about a thing like that? See, it presents this thing called a problem, capital P. A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times. So you can just look at your own experience, see, of whatever you've been up to and whatever came up on your inventories and fifth steps. See, was there a lot of remorse and guilt, shame and secrecy and hiding and, whatever you had? Very remorseful at times, especially if he's married to a loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for him. See, and there's always the other side of the coin. Some of the women alcoholics have really put the men in their lives through a lot of hell. So that doesn't mean that they're saints or wonderful or any of that kind of stuff. All right, now whatever the situation, we usually have to talk about it. We usually have to discuss it with somebody. See, what does your book say? Do. See, not to talk, not to deal, not to discuss, not to call. See, something has to be done. Go to the very top of the page where the two words you see in capital letters up there.
Action.
Have you ever noticed that problems once talked about remain problems? See, a discussed problem remains a discussed problem. Discussion doesn't change anything. See, there has to be a solution. A solution always requires doing something. See, so whatever the situation, we usually have to do something about it. You take that sentence, apply it to any problem you face in your life. It ain't a matter of what you think, it's a matter of what you're going to do. And what you do is going to determine what you get. See, so if you're looking for a solution, what to do about it, see, is the stuff that we learned in the book. When things are left undone, what happens in your life? Yeah, collision. Problems generally get worse when you leave something undone. So that's what happens to me. And the longer I let it lay, it's kind of like bread dough. Kind of seems to rise. Okay. See, are you also clear that having done your inventories up to this time, see, just doing anything that comes to mind is not the solution either. See, I've done a lot of stuff in my life, see, that didn't work. See, so there are a lot of things that I have done when it came to problems that didn't work. So not only do I need to do something, but I need to do something that's going to work. See, and this is where honesty, see, and a grasp of spiritual principles is involved in all this. Does that make sense to everybody? So whatever the situation, we usually have to do something about it. If we are sure our wife or husband does not know, should we tell her? Now, everybody remember the words of step 9? Make direct amends, see, to such people, wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them, see, or others. Now, especially in very hurtful areas such as sexual stuff, we need to be pretty careful about this kind of stuff. Generally, the people that we are talking to, see, are not people who are relying on God, see, are into honesty, see, and all that kind of stuff. See. So remember, we need to be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. And the reason I bring those up is so that you can understand what they're about to say here, see, because ruthless, brutal truth dumped on other people, see, is not a solution. So, if we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Let's all read the next sentence together out loud.
Not always.
Not always. Okay, so there may be cases, see, where that could and should be done, and I'll tell you one of those in a minute. See, but not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, that's a term you don't ever hear anymore. I think they still use it down south. He's running wild, she's running wild. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, should we tell her in detail? See, undoubtedly we should do what?
our fault.
Admit our fault. Okay, now whose side of it is that? Ours. See, so undoubtedly, beyond any shadow of a doubt, see, we need to be honest about that. So undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. Okay, now notice the verbs in the next two sentences. She may, they insist on knowing all the particulars. What's the next two words? She will. Okay, so the first one is she may, the next one is she will. So you want to know who the woman is and where she is. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, see, now,
He will want to know.
see, the reverse of that is quite often the truth also. See, this is definitely not, see, we're talking about jealousy here, and it's not strictly a female trait. See, it's generally, the word jealousy is generally spelled W-O-M-A-N in most people's eyes. See, it was with mine, or in mine, see, but as I took my own inventory and had to admit to all the jealousy that I really had, and I look around, see, it's pretty obvious that, jealousy is a non-gender specific kind of a character defect, and they have something quite serious to say about it at the top of page 82. See, so for you women, see, just remember you can turn the he's in, or the he's into she's and the she's into he's here, and it's just as true. Okay. So she may insist on knowing all the particulars, and she will want to know who the woman is and where she is. Now, why would somebody want to know those things?
Kill her.
Okay, so can you see that in cases such as this, see how the circles could expand immediately and how other people could get harmed, see, and things could get out of control without a whole lot of difficulty. See, and so this is why they suggest caution here. See, so it isn't dishonesty that's being suggested, see, but consideration and caution and things like that. How you doing, Dave?
Okay.
Page 81, second paragraph. Okay, so we feel, see, we ought to say to her, see, remember this is direct, that we have no right to involve another person. Is that direct? It's a direct statement. Okay, boom. See, this is just the truth. We have no right to involve anybody else. Now, we are sorry for what we have done. Are we? See, is she going to know if we're lying? Probably. Okay, so if we're not lying, see, this will probably work. If we are lying, probably won't work. Okay, pretty clear? Okay, so we are sorry for what we have done, and God willing, it shall not be repeated. See, so if you remember last week where we talked about the letter that they suggested that one guy send to the ex-wife, see, and they wanted him to admit his fault and to state an intention, see, and to make a demonstration. Okay, so this "it shall not be repeated" thing, see, is part of the amends. See, this is a statement of an intention. See, if I'm married to you, or see, whatever arrangement you have with your husband and wife, or the man or the woman in your life, see, then this is what needs to be stated and lived up to. It says more than that we cannot do. See, we have no right to go further. See, so we have admitted everything we can possibly admit without involving somebody else. Okay, so has everybody got it up to this point? See what they're trying to say. This can get kind of dicey. Okay. It says, though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, okay, and there aren't any rules, see, when it comes to amends, because circumstances are all totally different. See, every relationship is different, every couple is different. See, circumstances are different, the men and women, everything is different. See, so everybody involved in the amends process here, you, your sponsor, whatever, see, needs to be open-minded, seeking to be of service to everybody involved, see, without injuring anybody as a result. See, and that takes some relying on God to do that. And it takes a real intention, see, to be of service. See, and I don't know how you viewed your amends, how you're viewing them now, or how you viewed them in the past, see, but my whole deal here on step 9 especially, when I was new in AA, was see what is the least I can do to kind of make myself look good and slide through this process. See, and it was just a totally self-centered point of view. See, where I didn't really care whether other people got injured or what they thought or any of that. It was all, I was only thinking about me at that point. See, and it wasn't until I had done the first 5 steps the way the book said to do it where I began to see that, that I had to start considering other people honestly. See, and that this was about them and not about me. And I'm just trying to put my life in order. But I don't want to do that at anybody's expense. I don't want to create more resentments. Okay? And some of these things are can get pretty hairy. Okay? Now I want to tell you about Sean and Colleen up in Sacramento. They are, she's about 24 now. I think she was 21 when I met her. And he was about 29. And they were a couple of really sick drug addicts and alcoholics. And I sponsored both of them. And one great way to tell how your spiritual growth is going is to sponsor a sick couple, both of them. See, and see if you can stick to the program no matter who you're talking to and not buy into all the he did, she did kind of stuff that happens, especially at first. Okay, so we got them both through the book and through their 5th steps. And they were out at step 8 and 9. And Sean was... he finally got up the guts and prayed enough about it to start making his amends to her. See, they were kind of at this standoff. You know, who's going to go first, and then pride was on the line and all this stuff. There was all kinds of collusions and shit. It was just a mess. So one night, he had prayed about this for 3 days. He knew he had to do it because it was just killing him to have this going on in his house. So he finally sat her down and he started making his amends. And the more honest he was, the more open she became. See? And he ran upstairs and got his 4th step. See? And he read a very hairy sex inventory to her. Okay? She listened to it quietly. And when he was done, she said, "Stay there." And she ran upstairs and got her 4th step and read a very hairy sex inventory to him. See, and their life and relationship has been like this ever since. Both of them were relying on God when they did it. It was really an incredible thing. They just seemed to have this very rock-solid, spiritually based marriage and family. There's a new baby. There's all kinds of stuff. See, that has happened. See, now that's pretty hairy stuff. See, for most people, see, this is 2 folks who were relying on God. See, a very justifiable exception. See, that sounds pretty hairy. See, I can't tell this story too much in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings because people just go nuts. See, how could anybody do that? See, but see, they just came totally clean with each other. Absolutely. See, it's just a really nifty deal. See, so I certainly don't suggest that anybody here go get your sex inventory and read it to your husband or your wife. See, that's not what I'm talking about. See, it just so happened that in this case they were both working the steps and they both realized, see, not only their need to be honest, see, but they were both pretty clear about the other one's need to be honest. See, and that's what allowed them to do that. Okay, so it's pretty amazing stuff. Okay, so the sentence again says, though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, we have often found this the best course to take. See, one of the problems I see happening in AA all the time is sponsors are making rules, see, constantly, see, for the newcomers, see, and telling them what they have to do, and this is what you have to do, and do this and do that, because I said so, and none of that. See, where what we need to be doing, see, is relying on God, being open-minded. See, what is God's way of getting these amends made? See, I don't know about you guys, but when somebody says, you must do this, what do you generally do? Anybody else do? Yeah. Just get pretty close-minded? Yeah, me too. See, and then you got a problem, see, and then you got to help them get open-minded again. Okay. See, so we don't want to lay down rules, and we want to be as flexible and as open-minded, see, as we can be with ourselves and with the people that we work with, always with the intention, see, that nothing worthwhile in life can be accomplished until this is done. See, so this has to be the main focus, see, at this point, is all of this stuff needs to be cleaned up, see, because nothing is going to work until it is. We can't be of much service to other people. We can't be too effective in working with others. See, we can't talk to them about, see, the freedom that comes from doing this if we haven't done it ourselves. See, it's dishonest. See, we tell them we read it in the book, but we can't share it out of our own experience. See, so once again, see, it comes to that thing about you can't transmit what you don't have. So does that make sense to everybody? Okay, see, and what you're going to see as we get further on in the book, for example, chapter 7, it talks about how you're going to be able to help other people if you've done these things yourself. Claudine and I were going over that in the book the last couple of days. See, and it's also going to talk about, in other parts of the book, how if you have solved your domestic troubles, see, then you have something quite powerful to offer, see, to an alcoholic couple. See, but it says only if you have. See, if you haven't, see, you're just going to have the same kind of advice we all give each other, see, which is not a solution. See, here I am, you know, living my own kind of relationship life, see, trying to tell somebody else what to do with theirs. See, so, see, I hope you're beginning to see that. See, as we keep going on through the book, see, they keep assuming that we're doing it. See, and that we're getting free, and that we know what we're talking about, and that it's our own experience. Okay, see, and that way, you're not coming from an attitude of holier than thou and lecturing and all that. See, I've done all that, and see, I got the same point of view they got. It doesn't work. I've lectured my ass off. Screw you.
Mike, I have a question before you go on that.
Okay.
What you say really makes sense to me. So if you were kind of a person like I was and you came into this program and you were already divorced, you trashed everything and every relationship behind you. So now you want to work with others, and I really don't have that experience, practical experience of cleaning up my relationship because of that, you know. I mean, to the point where I'm now living with that person or whatever. That just never happened to me. So what would I do then in a 12-step call? I mean, or working with another person, would I then say this is what the book says? I can't tell you from my own experience, but
Well,
I've heard that it works, you know.
Yeah,
What
well,
I mean,
so you
what
can
do
say that. See, that's honest, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, you can't talk about something you haven't experienced.
See, I got a number of kinds of experiences in relationships and things since I've been sober. That, see, what I found is that by practicing spiritual principles, no matter what's going on, it works, regardless of what anybody else does. And the best thing you can do is always tell people the truth about stuff like that, see, as quickly as possible. See, let them know. See, and what I do is if we encounter a situation that I don't have any experience with whatsoever, I tell them I don't have any experience with that, but I know somebody who does, Jenny, for example. See, let me give you her phone number, or let me, if you don't want to do that, see, let me go talk to her and see if she's willing to share her experience with you. See, I will go find somebody who can help them. See, I don't ever just leave them with a problem because I can't help them solve it. See, I'll go find somebody in AA, see, who can help them solve it and get them together, okay, if everybody's willing. So I never want to leave, especially a newcomer sitting with a problem they don't know how to deal with. Okay,
You
Jeff?
said exactly what I was going to say. Direct them to someone else. I don't understand how it is to get a divorce or anything. I have to find, well, I know a lot of people that have, but it's the one that's actually applied it in their lives, you know. And I direct them to that. That's all I wanted to say. Just directing them to somebody who's been through. What usually what?
You have a question? Okay. Bottom of page 81 now. It says, our design for living. Okay, so here's another term. So you remember as we go through the book, they keep talking about way of living, way of life, design for living. It's all the same thing, and it has nothing, see, are you beginning to see, it really has nothing to do with meetings? It doesn't have anything to do with dances, barbecues, or conventions, or, any of that. See, that's not the design for living. See, that's all just sort of ancillary stuff. See, which is okay, good, wonderful. See, but that isn't the design for living. See, hanging around with sober people, that's not the design for living. It says our design for living is not a one-way street. It is as good for the wife as for the husband. Okay, see, now quite often, see, the husband and wife is not going to go along with this at all. Apparently, times were a little different in the 30s. They having to do with, social attitudes towards divorce and a lot of other things. See, so you encounter some things now where, the family quite often does not support the alcoholic or the drug addict who's trying to get clean and sober. Okay, but as we get into chapter 7, you're going to see that we do need to work with the wives and the husbands and the families. Okay, so it's as good for the wife as for the husband. See, if we can forget, so can she. But you bet me on whether she's gonna. Okay, it's better, however, that one does not needlessly name a person upon whom she can do what? Vent jealousy. And this is about the only place in the book where I start to grit my teeth a little bit about the way the words are. See, because it really gives you the idea that only women are jealous. Okay, see, and that is definitely not the truth. See, men are just as jealous. Now, this is very dangerous.
Jealous, or is there pride or?
Jealous.
Well,
I'm asking, I really don't know, I was just,
Well, I know from experience, because I will tell you how I know. There's a guy who used to call my wife, even though she's an Al-Anon and I was sponsoring. He used to call my wife because he was going to Al-Anon. And I got jealous because I said, he's on the phone too much. And I walked into the Eyes Club, and I told him, if you keep calling my wife, I will blow your effing head off. And that is not a threat, that's a promise. And I walked away. I made the amends to him since then. But I am a very jealous and possessive person. So, does that answer your question?
yes.
I didn't even get fancy, but I get fancy.
Boy, did I have a nerve?
Yeah.
Don't call Joe's wife.
I apologize if I came on too strong. Go with Michael.
You can save a lot of money with metered phone service.